This is the Ministry of Truth. I'm Gordon Comstock, and today we're going to be finishing up Samuel Morse's 1834 book. I guess it was even written a year before I thought it was. 1834, he wrote this book, Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States, American inventor Samuel Morse. Now, I've been reading it for two reasons. Number one, if you remember a week or two ago, I mentioned I've been having a sound issue, and in a couple of days I'm supposed to hopefully see a guy who can help me get it fixed. But if I sound awful, now you know why. It's been going on for a couple of months at least. I think it's just degenerating. Either that or I'm just more attuned to it. I'm sick of it. Sick of having the message undermined by something that I don't have the ability to fix on my own. You know, God gave me some talents. Fixing things wasn't one of them, apparently. No, more than apparently. So that's one reason. I mean, it's bad enough to have my voice marred, but why do I want to have a guest of mine? Why do I want to have his voice butchered as well? So I figured, you know what, now might be a good time to read this book by Samuel Morse. So that's one reason I've just held off getting guests in here until maybe I can get this thing fixed, hopefully. But the other reason is, folks, I've been trying to tell you, this is a book that you're not supposed to know about. It's been erased from history. And yet Charles Wilcox resurrects it. He finds an old copy. I'm going to ask him where, but apparently it hadn't seen the light of day in over a century. It's been erased from history. You're not supposed to know about Samuel Morse's message. But listen to this. I get this email a couple of weeks ago, now that I'm remembering, talking about this guy. His way of thanking me for the show, for doing this show for free, is just critiquing the show, telling me all the things I'm doing wrong. And then he goes on and says all the things that the legendary Visigoth, when he had his show, all the things he was doing wrong, and why we're burning out, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know what, if this guy can't even give me a simple thanks, just show some appreciation for putting out a free message, then he's using the service for free, and he can't even say thanks. Then if I burn out, if I bail out of here, and it's got anything more to do than my technical problems, then it's got nothing to do with my burnout, folks. It's got to do with if my listeners are really that ungrateful. That if this guy is emblematic of what I got listening to me, then why I will have quit is because it's my inability to stay motivated to provide this free service for a bunch of ingrates. Now, I don't think that all of you, or even most of you, are like that out there, but I suspect I got some hangers-on who he might represent. And, of course, he kind of stood up for the Patriot Network, so that kind of tells me where he's at. He's still in the GCN, RBN, mind-controlled mentality, I guess. But here's the other thing that he mentioned that really set me off. He said that I shouldn't be reading books on the air. This was one of his critiques. I should keep going, have guests. Don't read books. It's boring. I'm bored, he says. I get that a lot from my teenage students. And I always get it from the students who watch the most television, who are the most likely to have cell phones glued to the side of their head, or who are the most likely to have little handheld video games. They're always stimulated all the time. So when somebody tells me, I'm bored, especially when it's about a book, then what that tells me, it tells me much more about them than it tells me about the book or anything I'm doing. It tells me that they've got too much stimulation in their life. They watch too much television. This is just my hunch. They need to take their television, put a sledgehammer through the screen, and then take it to the dump. And then we'd come home and just maybe buy a book on the way home. And just watch that book for a couple of days. And when you don't have your TV around, maybe you might want to crack it open. And you know what you'll find after a few days, few weeks, few months without a TV? You'll find your attention span starts to grow. Doggone. You can actually get through a book. Imagine that. You're not bored by books. I'm bored, the guy tells me. in the email. And get this, this book, what to me, let me ask you folks, what's boring about finding a book that was dead, that was erased from history, that wasn't supposed to be out there, that was written 200 years ago, but hasn't seen the light of day in 100 years, over 100 years? And the reason for that is that the message of this book was trying to warn you people that if this entity ever gets power, they're going to kill you. They're going to torture you and then kill you. And so this entity, this was written 200 years ago, this entity gets power because Americans did not heed the message of this book, and so this entity erases this book from history. And so somebody like Charles Wilcox comes along and finds a copy of this book and says, it really did exist. Look, he was warning about this. And then somebody like me comes along and reads this book for you, does you that service, for those of you who are audio listeners, let's say. And then somebody who probably watches too much television says, I'm bored. Now I'm trying to figure out, I'm scratching my head. Let's see. 200 years ago, Samuel Morse, this brainiac American, well-respected, he did his homework. He went to Rome. He researched what was going on 200 years ago, and he said, hey, folks, Americans, if you don't watch out, they're going to overthrow your country. And then 200 years have gone by. Americans didn't watch out. They didn't heed Samuel Morse's message, and now we're getting to the point where Christians are about to have their heads chopped off. They're about to bring back the guillotine. And the reason they're going to do that is because that way they're going to sell your organs. They can preserve, that's all they're going to care about you. If you believe in Jesus Christ, if you stand up for Jesus Christ, that's what you're going to get. Because we didn't heed this message from Samuel Morse. And then, then you get guys like this who say, I'm bored. I'm bored with books. I'm bored with a book that managed to escape from the memory hole and isn't supposed to be around, isn't supposed to be here. Can't you stand on your head at least while you read it? Can't you maybe turn it into a video game so I can understand it, so my minute attention span can put up with a book? Oh, my goodness. It just disgusts me. It's really very, very, very disappointing. Well, let's do this thing. Chapter 12, Samuel Morse. Hold on a second. No, I got one more thing to say. It's somebody who would listen to this show and then say that they're bored by anything that's on it, when this is, you don't have to listen to this show. You know, it's voluntary and it's free. Somebody who would be bored by it, to me, they're lower than a teenager in public high school, than a D student or F student, teenager in public high school. Because in public high school, that's compulsory. You got to be there. So when they say, I'm bored, well, they got the cell phone glued to their head and the little handheld mini video game underneath their desk in the other hand. And then they go home and watch softcore porn, rap music on MTV. Now, when they're bored in school, number one, I understand it, because the curriculum now is written 3,500 miles away, and it's designed to turn them into robots, and teachers are now just parroting this, spoon-feeding this information. So, yeah, I can understand them being bored, but they have to be there. That's compulsory. For somebody to tell me that they're bored by this show, and it's really got me scratching my head, you know, leave. You don't let the door hit you in the posterior. You can't, you don't have the attention spans for books. Get out of here. My other hunch is that somebody who would say that has not read any of the books that I have ever talked about on this show. I bet they watch television. I bet they listen to Patriot Radio, P-A-Y, Patriot Radio. And that's what they're going to get what they're going to get, because the Patriot stations are going to lead them down an ugly, ugly path to self-sacrifice, just like they did in Hungary. And so many other revolutions. They're going to get you to stick your neck out and come to an armed insurrection, so that they can just take you out. The oligarchs have so much power now. Forget it. You're not going to do anything about them. But and they don't care if that much if you rebel against them. But what they want to do is they want to get you out quick. You know, they want to identify the people who are going to give them a little bit of problems. They want to identify them quickly and get them out. So they stage they put up a false leader. In this case, a few false networks leading them. You know, the Stat Millers, the Alex Jones. And they're going to get you all worked up. And they're going to get you to someday take your shotguns and your little handheld guns that are in your closet and come to some type of a militia insurrection, and they're going to have you take those weapons and go up against B-1 bombers and Abrams tanks and all of that, and you're going to get crushed. And all of a sudden your leaders, your Stat Millers and Alex Joneses, when that happens, they're not going to be found. That's what happened in Hungary. They had this leader who riled a bunch of people up and went to, the Hungarians rose against the communists. And then that leader was remarkably suddenly ineffectual when that revolution happened. Or he wasn't to be found that day or something. And the communists crushed the revolution. That's what happens again and again. They're called agent provocateurs, folks. If you listen to the Patriot radio stations, the RBNs, the GCNs, Patriot with a P-A-Y, you're listening to agent provocateurs. That's my opinion based on history. But then I read books, so what do you want? Chapter 12, here we go. Chapter 12 of Samuel Morse's 1834 book that has been highly suppressed, Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. In my last number, I deemed it a duty to warn the Christian community against the temptation to which they were exposed in guarding against the political dangers arising from popery, of leaving their proper sphere of action and degrading themselves to a common political interest. This is a snare into which they might easily fall, and into which, if popery could invite or force them, it might keep a jubilee, for its triumph would be sure. The propensity to resist by unlawful means the encroachments of an enemy, because that enemy uses such means against us, belongs to human nature. We are very apt to think, in the irritation of being attacked, that we may lawfully hurl back the darts of a foe, whatever may be their character, that we may fight the devil with fire, instead of the milder, yet more effective weapon of "the Lord rebuke thee." The same spirit of Christianity which forbids us to return railing for railing and persecution for persecution forbids the use of unlawful or even of doubtful means of defense, merely because an enemy uses them to attack us. If popery, as is unblushingly the case, organizes itself at our elections, if it interferes politically and sells itself to this or that political demagogue or party, it should be remembered that this is notoriously the true character of popery. It is its nature. It cannot act otherwise. Intrigue is its appropriate business. But all this is foreign to Christianity. Christianity must not enter the political arena with popery, nor be mailed in popish armor. The weapons and stratagems of popery suit not with the simplicity and frankness of Christianity. Like David with the armor of Saul, it would sink beneath the ill-fitting covering before the Philistine. Yes, popery will be an overmatch for any Christian who fights behind any other shield than that of faith, or uses any other sword than the sword of the Spirit of truth. But whilst deprecating a union of religious sects, to act politically against popery, I must not be misunderstood as recommending no political opposition to popery by the American community. I have endeavored to rouse Protestants to a renewed and more vigorous use of their religious weapons in their moral war with popery. But I am not unmindful of another duty, the political duty, which the double character of popery makes it necessary to urge upon American citizens with equal force. the imperious duty of defending the distinctive principles of our civil government. It must be sufficiently manifest to every Republican citizen that the civil polity of popery is in direct opposition to all which he deems sacred in government. He must perceive that popery cannot, from its very nature, tolerate any of those civil rights which are the peculiar boast of Americans. Should popery increase but for a little longer in this country with the alarming rapidity with which, as authentic statistics testify, it is advancing at the present time, parentheses, and it must not be forgotten that despotism in Europe, in its desperate struggles for existence, is lending its powerful aid to the enterprise, then if popery increase but for a little longer in this country, we may, even in this generation, learn by sad experience what common sagacity and ordinary research might now teach, in time to arrest the evil, that popery cannot tolerate our form of government in any of its essential principles. Popery does not acknowledge the right of the people to govern, but claims for itself the supreme right to govern all people and all rulers by divine right. It does not tolerate the liberty of the press. It takes advantage indeed of our liberty of the press to use its own press against our liberty, but it proclaims in the thunders of the Vatican, and with a voice which it pronounces infallible and unchangeable, that it is a liberty, quote, never sufficiently to be execrated and detested, unquote. It does not tolerate liberty of conscience nor liberty of opinion. The one is denounced by the sovereign pontiff as, quote, a most pestilential error, unquote, and the other, quote, a pest of all others most to be dreaded in a state, unquote. It is not responsible to the people in its financial matters. It taxes at will, and is accountable to none but itself. Now these are political tenets held by papists in close union with their religious belief. Yet these are not religious but civil tenets. They belong to despotic government. Conscience cannot be pleaded against our dealing politically with them. They are separable from religious belief, and if papists will separate them and repudiate these noxious principles and teach and act accordingly, the principal duty of exposing and opposing papists on the ground of the enmity of their political tenets to our republican government will cease. But can they do it? If they can, it behooves them to do it without delay. If they cannot, or will not, let them not complain of religious persecution or of religious intolerance. If this republican people, when it shall wake to the sense of the danger that threatens its blood-bought institutions, shall rally to their defense with some show of indignation, let them not whine about religious oppression if the democracy turns its searching eye upon this secret treason to the state, and shall in future scrutinize with something of suspicion the professions of those foreign friends who are so ready to rush to a fraternal embrace. Let them not raise the cry of religious proscription if American Republicans shall stamp an indelible brand upon the liveried slaves of a foreign despot, the servile ardorers of their quote-unquote good emperor, the Austrian conspirators, who now, sheltered behind the shield of our religious liberty, dream of security while sapping the foundations of our civil government. Let no foreign holy alliance presume or congratulate itself upon the hitherto unsuspicious and generous toleration of its secret agents in this country. America may, for a time, sleep soundly as innocence is wont to sleep, unsuspicious of hostile attack. But if any foreign power, jealous of the increasing strength of the embryo giant, sends its serpents to lurk within his cradle, let such presumption be assured that the waking energies of the infant are not to be despised, that once having grasped his foes, he will neither be tempted from his hold by admiration of their painted and gilded covering, nor by fear of the fatal embrace of their treacherous folds. Unfortunately, Samuel Morse was overestimating the American people there, as history has since shown. The mask thrown aside. A charge of hostility to American institutions against any sect or class in the community is a very serious one, and only requires evidence to support it, to draw upon all its doings the watchful eye of American free men. Is it asked, what evidence should you think sufficiently strong to substantiate the charge? I answer, the general principles of the sect would be sufficient, but its own declarations of hostility would certainly substantiate the charge. If a Presbyterian journal, in commenting on the trial of the rioters at Charleston, should make remarks like the following, the evidence would doubtless be considered complete. Quote, a system of government which admits a feeling of alarm in the execution of the laws from the vengeance of the mob, which Mr. Austin, the prosecuting attorney, distinctly allows to be the case. A vengeance exhibited by letters to the public officers and threats to the public authorities may be very fine in theory, very fit for imitation on the part of those who seek the power of the mob in contradistinction to justice and the public interest. And it is not of a nature to invite the reflecting part of the world, and shows at least that it has evils. A public officer in England who would publicly avow such a fear of executing his duty and carrying into effect the law of the realm ought and would be thrust out of office by public opinion. This one fact is condemnation of the system of American institutions, confirmed lately by numerous other proofs, unquote. Now it's back to Sam Morse. Now, could hostility to our institutions be more strongly expressed? And were Presbyterians, or any other Protestant sect, thus boldly to avow its political antipathies, every political journal would seize upon this evidence of treason and trumpet it through the whole country. Why, then, are they now silent? This treason is actually uttered, nor is it less humiliating or less dangerous that it is flung in our faces by a set of foreigners in the employment and pay of a foreign government instead of native citizens. The very words I have just quoted are from the Catholic Telegraph, a Roman Catholic journal, edited and published at Cincinnati. Let it be borne in mind, too, that a Catholic journal is under the supervision of the bishops, who exercise a rigid censorship over it, that it speaks the authorized sentiments of the sect, and we shall then perceive something of the importance to be attached to these anti-republican declarations. They are, indeed, a precious and invaluable testimonial to the people of the duplicity of their professed friends. Everywhere in the land hitherto, Papists have been loudest in professions of attachment to American republican institutions. They have now thrown off the mask. They unblushingly declare that, quote, our system of government, though very fine in theory, is not of a nature to invite the reflecting part of the world, unquote. In short, that it is an experiment that has failed, so they say, that, quote, American institutions stand condemned by a single fact in the trial in Boston and by numerous other proofs, unquote. And what has brought out this precious confession? What has occurred to make it a fit time to lay aside the disguise in which they have, till now, deceived the democracy of the country? What has produced this sudden revolution, in their opinion, of our form of government? Let us look into this matter. A body of native citizens is excited to indignation by rumors. Whether true or false alters not the case. Rumors that an act of foul play, such as the history of those nuisances, convents, in all countries have abundantly furnished, had occurred in the Charlestown nunnery. This mob, instead of being met with efforts to appease it by immediate explanation, as would have been the case in any Protestant seminary in the land, parentheses, for Protestants have no secret mysteries in their discipline, end of parentheses. This mob, I say, is kept for days in an excited state by mysterious maneuvering on the part of the Catholics and by irritating threats from the superior of the convent that 20,000 foreigners, under the orders of the bishop, would take vengeance upon the citizens if they dared to commit any injury upon the convent. And this threat was uttered in the sight of Bunker's Hill. Under this provocation, the outrage was committed. And is it a matter of surprise? I know of no one who justifies the illegal violence in burning the convent, but I unhesitatingly say that the feeling of indignation which animated the populace was a just and proper feeling. It was roused by the belief that a young and helpless female had been illegally and cruelly abducted from her friends and subjected to a secret tyrannical punishment. The feeling, I say under this belief, was not only honorable to the Charlestownians, but had they viewed such an outrage with indifference, they would have shown themselves unworthy of American citizens. Their error, parentheses, and it cannot be defended, however it may be palliated by the gross insult which they received, end of parentheses, consisted in suffering their just indignation to flow in an illegal channel, and instead of rallying round the laws and strengthening them by a strong expression of public opinion at a special meeting of citizens, they leaped the bounds of law and committed a crime which the papists are trying every possible means to cause to react in their favor. But allowing that no palliating circumstances attended the act of the rioters, that no excuse could be pleaded for them as acting under the impulse of the most stinging insult that could be given to any people by a foreigner, what have these acts to do with our quote-unquote system of government, or with quote-unquote American institutions? In England, forsooth, they manage things better. There are never riots in England. London, Manchester, Bristol, I suppose, were never agitated by riots. Paris, Lyon, Marseille, St. Petersburg, Brussels, Frankfurt, Rome, Constantinople, none of these places under various systems of government are ever witnesses to riots? Yeah, he's being sarcastic. But this popish enemy to our institutions may say, it is not the riot, but the threatening letters sent to the prosecuting attorney to intimidate him in his duty that tells against the government. Indeed, and who wrote the letters? Is it quite certain that they were not the production of some Jesuit to fan an excitement which was so likely to be turned to the advantage of his schemes? Threatening letters are much in use in a certain Catholic country called Ireland, under a monarchical system of government. But suppose these letters were not written by Jesuits, but were the production of some wicked or thoughtless person, what then? Is our form of government the cause of the writing of anonymous, threatening letters? Would any other form of government prevent this evil of so alarming magnitude in the eyes of the Catholic Telegraph? Can it be prevented in England or in any other government in the world? Yes, there is one government which could probably prevent it. It is one in which the Inquisition is established, and by means of which, aided by the confessional, all that is considered necessary for the good of the Church could be brought to light, or rather to the ears of those most interested in knowing all secrets that bear upon their power. How soon we shall be prepared for such a change of government to suit the designs of these busy foreign emissaries depends on the continuance of the character for sagacity, intelligence, and virtue of the American people. Well, Sam Morse, forget it. They lost it. We're about ready to go there. And I know I'm boring that guy out there who says that he was bored by books. Well, I wonder if he's going to be bored on the way up to the guillotine. No, frankly, he won't be one of those up to the guillotine, probably, because he'll be one of those watching television, I would guess. And he'll be sitting there, mind-controlled, in his semi-hypnotic beta state, going, "Yes, master," to his rulers. So, go for it, dude. Have at it. Me, I'm going to stand for Jesus Christ. Thanks. And I'm going to keep reading. Whatever doubts some may have hitherto had in regard to the existence of a foreign conspiracy in the country, I think the case has now become too plain to need further proof. Indeed, so bold are these foreign emissaries in the utterance of their anti-republican dogmas, so unblushing in their attacks upon our institutions, that we are often led to exclaim, "What does this mean? Are these men fools or madmen? Or are they so strong in their support from abroad that they feel secure in bearding American freemen in their own homes?" The latter supposition alone satisfactorily explains their conduct. Austria is now playing a desperate game against liberty, for the safety of her own throne, and for that of her allies. It is the last hazard, and her object is gained if she can destroy the influences of our prosperity upon the people of Europe. A prosperity, the natural result of our popular free institutions. And this latter object is effected by, if by any means, no matter how, riot and disorder can be produced in this country, to be pointed at as the effect of republican government. Americans, friends of liberty, friends of order, examine this subject and decide with your usual sagacity and discretion. You have a busy, a crafty, a powerful, a dangerous set of foreign leaders, controlling and commanding a foreign population, ignorant and infatuated, intermixed with your own population, and who, at a single signal from the Pope or from Metternich, when the cause of despotism shall require the deed, can spread disorder and riot through all your borders. Shrink not, Americans, from looking at the truth. You may boast of your peace and prosperity. You hold them both at this moment at the mercy of Austria. She has a disciplined band of foreigners in the midst of you, who, in any season of excitement, she can make to fill your streets and dwellings with fear and confusion. Hey, that's right. I remember in the LA riots of '92, you guys realized that more than half of the the looters who were arrested were illegal aliens. What were they doing there, huh? I thought it was blacks versus whites, yeah. She may not think it prudent or expedient just now to exercise her power, but she has the power through popish priests, who hold in check at their pleasure the elements of discord, and whose favor you are compelled humbly to conciliate as the price of your tranquility. And this power is daily increasing, not merely by foreign immigration and foreign money, but with the deepest shame, be it spoken, by the assistance, direct and indirect, of Protestant Republican Americans, who, with a facility most marvelous, fall into every snare and pleasant baited trap that popery spreads for them. Samuel Morse, you got to be rolling in your graves nowadays with the idiot ecumenicalists who are embracing Romanism at every stop. And then there is a little addendum at the end of this. We're just about at the end of the book. Here's a little addendum. This might be kind of, well, let's see what it is. As the last sheet was printing, an article of intelligence was received bearing importantly on the subject of this volume. Bishop England, the busy Jesuit, whom I have had the occasion before to notice, has just put forth an address to his diocese at Charleston on his return to Europe, from which we make the following extracts. Quote, "During my absence, I have not been negligent of the concerns of this diocese. I have endeavored to interest in its behalf several eminent and dignified personages whom I had the good fortune to meet, and have continued to impress with a conviction of the propriety of continuing their generous aid in the administration of those societies from which it has previously received valuable succor. In Paris and at Lyon I have conversed with these excellent men who manage the affairs of the Association for Propagating the Faith. This year their grant to this diocese has been larger than usual. I have also had the opportunity of communicating with some of the council which administers the Austrian Association. They continue to feel an interest in our concerns. The propaganda in Rome, though greatly embarrassed, owing to the former plunder of its funds by rapacious infidels, has this year contributed to our extraordinary expenditure, as has the Holy Father himself, in the kindest manner, from the scanty stock which constitutes his private allowance, but which he economizes to the utmost for the purpose of being able to devote the savings to works of piety, of charity, and of literature." Unquote. Quote, further down, quote, "The prelates of the Church of Ireland are ready, as far as our hierarchy shall require their cooperation, to give to them their best exertions in selecting and forwarding from amongst the numerous aspirants to the sacred ministry that are found in the Island of Saints, Ireland, a sufficient number of those properly qualified to supply our deficiencies. I have had very many applications and accepted a few who, I trust, have been judiciously selected." Unquote. Back to Sam Morse here. Just about out of here. This is, in fact, the last paragraph. "We have here additional confirmation, if any were wanted, that in countries where church and state are closely united, and where constantly every religious association, parentheses, totally unlike our religious associations which have no connection with the government, end of parentheses, is directly connected with political objects, there is a great and special effort making to effect certain objects in the United States. We have no less than 3 great societies, all formed to operate on this country. They say religiously, but let Americans who know that Austria makes no movement which is not intended for political effect, judge whether religious benevolence towards this benighted land, or a deeper and more earthly feeling of political self-preservation prompts her, quote, continued feeling of interest in our concerns, unquote. So there you have it, folks. That's the Disappeared book, the book that was written in 1834 by American inventor Samuel Morse, warning Americans that the Vatican and Austria, the Holy Roman Empire, were trying to subvert, to overthrow this country, our form of government, in 1834, and that they were well on the way to doing it and would do it unless Americans acted. Unless, as Samuel Morse suggested, we took away the franchise of the immigrants, for one thing. Well, we didn't do that. They still voted. And we are where we're at now. And if you don't know where we're at now, I would suggest you read some of the books that I talk about so much. Read Charles Wilcox's The Transformation of the Republic. You read that, and you watch your hair stand on end. Good luck. Good luck with that, folks. You're going to really know you're in a matrix if you read that. But read it at your own peril. You're going to need guts.